EAGLES, Eagles.
Welcome in, everybody, to a Football Friday edition of Birds 365. John, today we are officially wrapping up the 2025 NFL preseason. Less than 1 week from today, the Philadelphia Eagles will kick off their season versus the Dallas Cowboys. And at this time next week, we will have a Football Friday with real NFL football, regular season football. Johnny Mac, how you doing on this Football Friday morning?
Yeah, coming off, 5 hours sleep? Not even close to 5 hours sleep Friday. Night game, yeah, let's get it underway. Bullshit Thursday night game. Boy, I would like Sunday to kick off the NFL season. But, hey, when you're the Super Bowl champions, you go first now.
No doubt about it, John. John, we got a lot to talk about today, too, man, as we get ready for that Thursday night game. 6 days away from right now. So you'll have a chance to, John, the benefit is you'll have a chance to kick your feet up on that first Sunday of football and consume some games if you want to go that route. So that'll be next Thursday night. But, John, we got a lot to talk about, man. The Eagles roster's got some changes on it. Obviously, a blockbuster trade in the NFL with NFC East ramifications yesterday in Micah Parsons. Full disclosure, I never thought they were going to do it. They do it. Micah Parsons end up in Green Bay. Again, I mentioned the roster changes and that game looming, John. So plenty of things to break down here on a Football Friday of Birds 365, brother.
Yeah, and I think the biggest one comes from outside, as he said, which I think, there's a lot of people that seem to care more if the Cowboys lose than the Eagles win, which I never understood. It's not a majority, but there's a significant minority that feels that way. I don't think this is good for the Eagles. I would have kept him there with an owner that's losing it, and now he's with a good organization that might be able to take advantage of it, who's in the same conference. So, yeah, you get to see him less, but you might see him in more important spots. And that, to me, is worse news for the Philadelphia Eagles. So to bring it in from, obviously, the Packers got a great player. They had to pay for it. That's what you have to do. Cowboys, I thought it was interesting that Don Van Natta, who's the great investigative reporter from ESPN, who has broken a lot of sort of business stories. Well, I think Don highlighted where he gets a lot of his information, but he tweeted last night, Jerry Jones bought the Cowboys by shaking hands with Bum Bright, who's the former owner. In a different time, he bought the Cowboys for, I think about that. He bought the Cowboys for $140 million. And, Green Bay just had to pay Micah Parsons, in theory, $188 million. So it's been a pretty good business investment for Jerry Jones. But anyway, so to continue, Don said, Micah Parsons committed to a contract extension with Jerry on handshake, which he's not allowed to do because he has an agent, but I digress. When Parsons reneged, Jerry decided Parsons would never wear the star on his helmet. Jerry can't trust you. You're done. Okay. Hey, like I said, Don seems like a Cowboys fan there, but B, it's like, that's a terrible way of doing business. Awful. I'm not saying, first of all, you're an idiot for going to the player that has an agent, number one. And number two, if Micah did agree to a contract extension, he didn't, he doesn't represent himself. So it has no standing. And if you want to play the old bullshit, handshake is a man's, all right, then you got a shitty organization. Things are going to happen. You pivot away. I made a mistake. He made a mistake. Whatever, blah, blah, blah. Instead, you lose your best player for, picks that are going to be pretty deep in the first round, unless catastrophe happens for Green Bay from an injury standpoint, and you get an aging defensive tackle. And that's another thing. Jerry kind of conflates it with Herschel Walker, which was the famous trade that Jimmy Johnson set, and really Jimmy's responsible, not Jerry, for building up that legendary Cowboys team. And he spun off. He got a huge haul from Minnesota. He spun it off and got a bunch of players. And
Right.
You think Jerry's going to do that? He's out there saying, "Well, I needed a defensive tackle." You got that piece, and you're gonna shrink things down to I need a defensive tackle, which they do. But you're trying to get the best haul at that point, and you're limiting yourself to who's got a defensive tackle that's available? Yeah, just awful football management.
John, he definitely has that old school mentality, Jerry Jones. And the thing that he has proven is he doesn't give a shit, man. He really doesn't give a shit. If he feels disrespected, if he feels slighted, if he feels like anybody is trying to tell him how to run his team, he is going to ship you off. It's almost an impressive commitment, John, to the shtick. It really is. Yeah. He will blow it up just to make sure that nobody tells him what to do.
It is tremendous commitment to the bid. That's all fine and good, and a lot of old school. He's obviously old. A lot of older people. I'm older. We have a different set of Yes, handshake. You should be able to trust somebody. You also have to be realistic about it.
Yeah, the business has changed. Just like you bought it for $140 million, it's now worth $12.5 billion. With that comes, like you said, agents and lawyers and different things.
Exactly. So, I mean, you can either navigate through the real world, or you can play that bullshit. Back in the bum break days, your handshake was your bond. Okay, so continue to have a shitty team. I mean, all right.
John, in your estimation, man, because I agree with exactly what you said about open. I mean, how do you have that type of player, whatever age, Mike? I think he's 26 or something. That good of a football player, all right, and you have that chess piece that you can use to go any direction you want. He could have opened that thing up to every team and probably gotten so much. What type of haul do you think Jerry should have gotten from Micah? Because I'm not saying 2 firsts and Kenny's not. Is not, it's not nothing, but it feels like they could have gotten so much more from Micah Parsons.
Well, I mean, I don't know from a player standpoint. I mean, I think 2 number ones and a player is fine. And when you have to pay the guy $48 million or whatever the hell it was, with the contract's going to limit the compensation coming back. So that's baked into it, which I think I say all the time. People have to think about the contract first before they talk about trade pieces. So I don't have a problem with it, but I would have focused. If it were me, I would have said, all right, I want 2 first-round picks and I want a starting level player. And I would have opened the bidding and said, I don't care. I mean, yes, I need a defensive tackle, but I want the best player.
Right.
And I want the best. And I would have focused on teams rebuilding because I want high picks. I don't want 28. God forbid 32.
I know.
And that's what you're getting from the Packers.
All right. They were 23 last year, and I think they're going to be better this year.
Yeah, no question about it. Now, of course, barring injuries, they're a legitimate Super Bowl contender now. Now, one person doesn't make a Super Bowl. If that were the case, the Cowboys would win. But they'd make good decisions. They'll make good decisions around Micah Parsons. So it makes them better right off the bat, and they're going to be low on the list. So I would have focused on teams that really want to make a splash, that aren't as good, aren't as prepared to make that quick leap, and gotten picks that would at least be top 15 or have a chance to be top 15. So I think that's where they made the mistake. Plus, we all talk about the rivalries of the Cowboys. Hey, I got news for you. They got a big rivalry with Green Bay. Now, again, it's not to the standard of the NFC East because you got to play each other twice a year, but they had so many playoff battles because Green Bay's been so good over the years. Just a couple of years ago, they boat raced them when they won 13 games. That was the Aaron Jones game. They just killed them. Like everybody's saying the Cowboys is the most talented team in the NFL that year. And they won like 42 to whatever, 14. But they blew them out in Dallas, in Arlington. They have a long history with the Packers over the last 30 years since the Packers got good again,
Right.
with Favre. And most of it is tilted towards the Packers. So, this is bad on so many levels for the Dallas Cowboys. I find it very hard to believe that anybody's spinning it in any other way. Now, for locally, we're an Eagles. It's not good for them either. Because again, I'd rather play them twice in that monstrosity of a situation than have to sit there in the playoffs and say it's the divisional round or it's the NFC Championship game, and all of a sudden here comes a great Packers team. And the Eagles are great too, and they might persevere and they might beat them, but they might not. And this is going to go on probably for, nobody looks past 3 years in the NFL, but certainly over the next 3 years. So I don't think it's good for the Eagles either, to be honest.
We got plenty of stuff to talk about with it. All right, we're going to continue to talk about that part of it, the NFC East perspective, and then also the NFC at large perspective. I do want to take a look at Green Bay. But, John, just a couple questions here on the Cowboys. I mean, we got them 6 days from now. I mentioned at the opening of the show, the season opener is 6 days out. Well, it's versus the Dallas Cowboys. In your estimation, did they just wave the white flag on the season already? Not that I think their team thought they were competing for a Super Bowl this year, but it's another thing to go out and basically proclaim it to the world by sending Micah Parsons, one of the best players in the world, for Kenny Clark and a couple of future.
Well, I don't think, the people saying, well, they're going to tank for Arch Manning or whomever you think is the best quarterback. I don't think it's that. They're too good for that. You have to do a lot more. They're still not in the conversation for being one of the worst teams in football. Maybe if Dak gets hurt again and Joe Milton's in there, maybe then you start to say, all right, let's wave the white flag. But I think they're in purgatory now. They're a 7 to 9 win team, and they might have been a 7 to 9 win team with them because they're just not built correctly, but they still have too many good players to be completely off the rails, barring, if the quarterback gets injured, which is pretty much everywhere, almost, with few exceptions.
Right.
So I don't see it as that. I see it as, pissing match at the bar. That's what I see. That's it. It's just simple. Occam's razor again. Simplest explanation. Same thing that his divorce with Jimmy Johnson way back. Literal pissing match at the bar.
Right.
Both drunk. Now, I'm not saying Micah was drunk when he, but Jerry probably was. But anyway, I digress. Shouldn't say that. But a figurative pissing match at the bar. Nothing more.
It is crazy. Outlook on the NFC East, John, feels like, I know the Cowboys, as you said, they weren't really a contending team coming into this year, but I thought
they're a back-end contending playoff team, but not.
That's what I thought too. I thought they had a chance to win 10, 11 games if things bounced their way, if you know what I mean. And it feels like they just took themselves out of the conversation almost entirely. This NFC East just got better for the Birds. And while I do know you said at the open, it's not ideal for the Eagles that he went to the NFC. I'm going to soft disagree with you and say I agree. You made another contender in the NFC, but you got Micah Parsons out of your division where you're going to play the Cowboys 2 times every single year. Green Bay is another NFC team, but one thing that's consistent is your NFC East opponents, and they got way worse, and the NFC East got easier in my estimation for the Birds.
Well, I thought it was a 2-horse race to begin. It's still a 2-horse race because the Cowboys weren't involved in it.
But I mean, even like long term, I'm not just looking at this year.
Well, over the next 3 years, the Cowboys are, and you have a guy stewarding the ship that there's no confidence in. So I don't know how much that changed. There was no confidence in him before at this stage for all the missteps over the years. So I don't know from that standpoint how much has changed, and that's why I disagree with you. Is that keep them in the bad situation? All right, you got to see them twice a year. All right, but you'll persevere because you're making better decisions, and yeah, the occasional game will pop up, and I'll probably make a couple big plays. But that's what great players do. Now you got that potential great, like we talked about the Jimmy Johnson Cowboys. It was San Francisco. It wasn't the Eagles or the Commanders. There's more visceral hatred in the division, but it was San Francisco.
Right.
And then it became Green Bay. If you keep seeing the same team in the playoffs over a 5-6 year span, they become your bigger rival by far. To a certain degree, you saw it with San Francisco, the comeback to beating them down, and then San Francisco coming back, and all the hate that generated, and the stupid morning shows going back and forth. It becomes a bigger deal, and that was sort of a mini version. It becomes a larger version, like the Bar Packers and the good Cowboys, and then I think you'll have a complete different mindset. And this year, look, I heard, I'm not picking on him, but I heard somebody talk. Kyle Schwarber hit 4 home runs last night. Now that is a fucking amazing feat. I think it's happened 19 times in the history of baseball.
Yeah.
And they've been playing baseball for a long time. It doesn't happen that often. Happens less than a no-hitter. I forget how many perfect games there are. I think it happens less than a perfect game. It is an amazing feat. I heard somebody say it's meaningless because it's the regular season. Boy, that whole mindset, it mystifies me. What are you watching sports for if you can't enjoy 4 home runs? If you're a Phillies fan and you can't enjoy that moment, just stop following the team.
I couldn't agree with you more on that part.
I from the standpoint, there are so many, and I would say there's more Eagles fans that no matter where this ends, if it doesn't end in the Super Bowl championship, they will consider this season a failure. So if they lose to the Green Bay Packers in the NFC Championship game, that's a great season. That is a great, great season. But there will be a lot of people that shit on this team. And that's why I think it is much more concerning to have Micah Parsons in Green Bay than it is in Dallas.
All right, well, let's talk about the NFC real quick because I think you laid it out nicely there. But, John, this is my reservation. I will admit this. All right, we have another emerging team that is in the conversation to win the NFC. I think the Packers were good before this. I don't think they were with the top 4. I think it was Eagles, it was Lions, it was Commanders, and it was, who am I leaving out? Rams probably coming into the year. I think you've added the Packers to that list. But here is my concern with them. I don't trust Jordan Love. I don't think he's good enough. And that team's only going to go as far as Jordan Love's going to take him, in my opinion. And I think that's probably where they are not good enough, at least in my eyes. What do you see with the Packers team?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think he's way too reckless. So I agree from your standpoint. But one thing you won't hear about Jordan Love is he doesn't have the ceiling as a player. Nobody's going to downgrade his talent. Nobody's going to say he's not good enough. So, that's a tightrope you're walking. You're assuming he's not going to learn from his mistakes. He's never going to learn from his mistakes. He's never going to improve. And quarterbacks improve all the time. Jalen Hurts has improved. Josh Allen, still a little bit too reckless, but he has been greatly improved from what he once was. Everybody can improve. And when you do improve, you generally improve from learning from your mistakes. So you got to hope he doesn't learn from those mistakes, which is possible. But yeah, to me, roster wise, they have a legitimate Super Bowl roster, and they were close before. And the concern was the same concern. The guy makes too many mistakes, too push the ball. But did he push it because they were struggling at wide receiver too much? And again, did he push it like Jalen Hurts in 2023 because they were behind more because they had to? All these things factor into it. You know, they got Matthew Golden now. I don't know if he's going to turn into anything as a first-round pick, but obviously he's got significant talent. They might just be better. And, you know, they're a team that has Josh Jacobs. They're a team that has now Golden added to Jaden Reed and Dobbs and Wicks.
Yeah,
And
they got some weapons over there for sure.
Yeah, they got a great tight end in Tucker Kraft. Their offensive line,
yeah.
It's good. It's good. It's not Eagles good, but nobody's Eagles good. The center's great. The right tackle's great. Banks is good. Ryan's good. Walker's the biggest concern. They got Micah Parsons and didn't have to give up Rashawn Gary. That's the guy I would have been looking for.
Right. Well, what do you think of what they did? Because they gave up Kenny Clark, and many have said, hey, their run defense is going to be shoddy as hell. And I agree with it. It probably is going to be shoddy, but you got Micah Parsons back. They're going to get pressure on quarterbacks, that's for sure. What do you think of who they gave up?
Well, you know, that's the mentality, and that's why I've warned everybody who thinks that everybody's coming to stop Saquon Barkley. I don't think that's the case. Everybody in this league still doesn't give a rat's ass about stopping the run. And this is another indication. So certainly maybe that helps the Eagles. But I don't think, you know, Kenny Clark is the reason they're stopping the Eagles and Saquon. So, you know, it depended. I like I said, you know, I was talking about getting an impactful pass rusher here, and Micah was always out of the question, even Trey Hendrickson. Everything falls into place, I would say. You know, Nolan's the number. Well, now Rashawn Gary's your number 2. And that's pretty freaking impressive.
Yeah.
So everything falls into place from that standpoint. You know, Edgerrin Cooper, we talk about rookies. He was a great rookie. So you talk about linebackers, and they have Coy Walker, who's a first-round pick. You have Xavier McKinney, that's a player the Eagles love and has killed the Eagles over the years. One of the best playmaking safeties in football. They're loaded, man. They're loaded. And they were loaded before this, and now people gave them Micah Parsons. So I say, why do people keep giving the Eagles good players? I say the same thing with the Packers. Like, why do you keep giving this team windows? Because they're going to make good decisions. And now I'm going to get accused of being a Packers fan.
Well, I'll tell you this too, John. Another factor in this is that NFC North is a gauntlet, man. They might destroy each other, kind of like they did last year.
Yeah, I see. I don't think so. Detroit, yes, but remember they're losing. Detroit's immensely talented, but they lost both coordinators. Like, JJ McCarthy. Come on.
Well, they got a good roster, though. I mean, it doesn't mean
they do, but you can't. You can't compete with Detroit and Green Bay if you don't have a quarterback.
Yeah, but you can be enough to, we play the Cowboys twice and the Giants twice. Who's a tougher opponent for, us playing those two teams or the Packers having to play the Bears?
There's no doubt on paper, the NFC North is better top to bottom than the NFC East. No question. But I mean, the Giants are getting better. Like I said, you can talk. Yeah, if you're talking yourself into the Bears, you can talk yourself into the Giants.
You can. I think the Giants might get third in the NFC East this year.
I mean, with that defensive front, like, what are you doing with the Bears? You're just talking yourself into things. Well, Caleb Williams is this. Well, he didn't look like this last year, so you're talking yourself into something.
I hear you.
Same thing with the Giants. Their defensive front in a different way, and if Jackson Dart, can be something, Bo Nix-ish, as I compare him to. All of a sudden, the Giants are better than the Bears. So, I mean, until I see it, and maybe he's great. It's possible, JJ McCarthy, but until I see it, I have a hard time believing it. And my second assumption with JJ, he's going to get hurt again. It's like 190 pounds, and then they have Carson Wentz in there.
I know.
So
maybe Kevin O'Connell can get something out of Carson Wentz.
Well, if anybody can, it'd probably be him. But how much? I think there's levels, and people were shitting on Sam Darnold last year when I would say, hey, that guy's having a great season, but he has the final two bad games, and everybody's like, well, he turned him into something. But I think Carson would be more the Josh Dobbs. He turned Josh Dobbs into, okay, he's not the worst quarterback I've ever seen. There are levels. So he'll probably get more out of Carson than most people, but you ain't going to be a contender with Carson Wentz at age 32. Andy had him last year. He looked terrible. I'm more concerned about what that says about Sam Howell than anything else locally.
Yeah.
Because he gave up on him so quick.
All right, John, last exercise here, then we're going to get into the Eagles roster. All right, the initial 53 lasted, 12 hours, maybe less than that. So we'll talk about the changes that have come to the Eagles roster, the practice squad. I think they just signed another receiver to the practice squad about 25 minutes ago live here on the show. So we'll talk about that. Before I do that, John, the NFC landscape changed yesterday. We just talked about it for the first 25 minutes of the show here. Can you rank your top 5 NFC teams coming into the year right now for me? Because I do think
I'm gonna go. Yeah, I shifted. I'm going to go Eagles still 1. I mean, they're the reigning champs. I'll give deference to them. I think I'm gonna go Detroit 2, Packers 3, Commanders 4, Rams 5.
Eagles, Lions, Packers,
Commanders,
Rams.
And I think any of those teams could catch lightning.
Yeah. I'm surprised you have the Rams at 5. I like them because that D line is nasty, man.
Yeah, it is.
I'm a little concerned about
but I'm concerned about Matt Stafford
Yeah,
back. Yeah, they're a good team. Any of them. Any of them can win the NFC of those 5 teams, I think.
I think there's any other outside opportunity.
Well, Minnesota, McCarthy's something, but I just don't believe in them.
Yeah, me neither.
San Francisco, I think, is going to be better coming off last year. They're playing the last place schedule, so they're set up to have a bounce back. But I don't think they're legitimate Super Bowl back yet. But they could have a good season. That's about it, I would say.
I think you're right on the money. I mean, mine would maybe look a little different, my top 5, but the 5 teams are the same and all pretty marginal differences there. So, all right, everybody, good stuff. Micah Parsons traded to the Green Bay Packers. Last word is, John, I really didn't think Jerry was going to do it, man. I thought he would walk the line. I thought he would I thought he would franchise tag him if he needed to. I thought he was going to drag this thing out as long as possible until he got his way. I did not think he was actually going to trade him.
Well, I think that's why I brought up Don, because Don has a direct pipeline to Jerry Jones. Pissing match. It's basically what it came down to.
Yep. Jerry will not lose a pissing match. All right. So that's what happened. Good stuff there, everybody. The Packers get a little bit better. Eagles still top of the NFC, in my opinion, coming into the season. We got 6 days from the opener, and it's versus the Dallas Cowboys, who I just said it. They waved the white flag. I think they waved it, everybody. We'll see how that game kicks off here next Thursday night. Looking forward to that. John, let's get into that Eagles roster and some of the changes there. All right. I mentioned the initial 53 did not last very long, John. Let's walk through some of the changes that have come and starting with the more meaningful ones. What do you got for me, John, on the Eagles roster and where that stands? Because they're taking and baking, making a lot of moves.
Well, I think the biggest thing is you brought up the practice squad. I mean, they got 3 guys that they're supposed to sign to the practice squad. They already filled out their practice squad. So there's going to be big movements when it comes to the practice squad. Before they're back on the practice field Sunday. So Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, they'll practice in advance of Thursday night's game. So the latest guy you just mentioned, Javon Baker, to the practice squad. He's another Alabama guy. He played at Alabama, then he transferred out. So So I think a lot of people aren't going to recognize he's an Alabama guy, but he was teammates with DeMonte and all that. So they doubled down on their SEC proclivity, which is not necessarily a bad thing. But again, he'll start on the practice squad. Audric Estime is still coming to the practice squad.
Yeah,
and they're going to have to.
Excited about him, John. And then I saw the roster, and I was like, wait a second, he's not all there. Where the heck is Audric Estime? So let's see what they do.
Yeah, he's coming. He's coming. And then Ambry Thomas, another cornerback, who was a third-round pick in San Francisco. They always get ex-San Francisco third-round picks. He's going to be added. So, yeah, they have a full practice squad. The 16 guys they had practicing yesterday, and they're going to have to cut 3 of those guys to make room for,